The Trojan War, how one choice changed the ancient world. For nearly a generation, Greece knew peace. The monsters had been defeated. The great heroes had earned their legends. The gods watched from Mount Olympus as kingdoms prospered. But the greatest war in Greek mythology would not begin with an army. It would begin with a wedding. The wedding that changed history. The gods gathered to celebrate the marriage of the mortal hero Peleus and the sea goddess Thetis. Olympus was alive with music. Golden goblets overflowed with nectar. The muses sang. Apollo played his lyre. Even Zeus smiled. Every god had been invited, except one, Eris, the goddess of discord. No one wanted conflict at a celebration of peace. Humiliated and furious, Eris decided the gods would remember her forever. She appeared only long enough to throw a single golden apple into the center of the feast. Across its polished surface were carved four simple words, "For the fairest." The music stopped. Three goddesses stepped forward: Hera, queen of the gods; Athena, goddess of wisdom and war; Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Each believed the apple belonged to her. None would surrender. The argument quickly grew so fierce that even Zeus refused to decide. Instead, he chose a mortal judge, a young prince living far from power. His name was Paris, the judgment of Paris. Paris, the prince of Troy, lived peacefully as a shepherd on Mount Ida. He had no idea that destiny was about to place the future of nations into his hands. Hermes escorted the three goddesses before him. Each offered him a gift. Hera promised unlimited political power. "You will rule the greatest empire the world has ever known." Athena smiled confidently. "I will make you the wisest man alive. You will never lose a battle." Then Aphrodite stepped forward. She whispered softly, "I offer something neither power nor victory can equal. I will give you the love of the most beautiful woman in the world." Paris hesitated. Power could build kingdoms. Wisdom could win wars. But love captured his heart. He handed the golden apple to Aphrodite. The decision seemed harmless. Instead, it doomed an entire civilization, Helen of Sparta. The most beautiful woman in the world was Helen. Her beauty had become legendary across Greece. Kings traveled thousands of miles simply to ask for her hand in marriage. Eventually, she married Menelaus, king of Sparta. She became queen. Peace seemed secure. Then Paris arrived as a royal guest. Under the protection of sacred hospitality, he was welcomed into the palace. For days, he admired Helen, whether through Aphrodite's divine influence or genuine affection. Helen left Sparta with Paris. Together, they sailed for Troy. When King Menelaus returned home and discovered his queen gone, his outrage shook Greece. This was more than a stolen wife. It was an insult to every Greek king, an attack upon sacred honor itself. War became inevitable. The oath of kings years earlier, every suitor seeking Helen's hand had sworn an oath. If anyone ever threatened her marriage, all would unite to defend it. Now that promise was called upon. Messengers crossed Greece. One by one, legendary heroes answered. Agamemnon, powerful king of Mycenae, brother of Menelaus, he became commander of the Greek alliance. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, known not for strength, but unmatched intelligence. Ajax the Great, a giant among warriors. Diomedes, fearless in battle. Nestor, the wise elder whose advice guided kings. And finally, the greatest warrior who had ever lived, Achilles. Long before the war began, a prophecy surrounded Achilles. His mother, the sea goddess Thetis, knew two possible futures awaited her son. If he remained at home, he would live a long and peaceful life. But history would forget his name. If he sailed to Troy, he would win eternal glory, but die young. Achilles chose glory. He knew exactly what the future demanded and accepted it willingly. The 1,000 ships, Greek harbors filled with activity. Blacksmiths forged swords, shipbuilders worked day and night. Supplies covered the beaches. When preparations ended, more than 1,000 ships stretched across the sea. It became the largest military expedition the ancient world had ever imagined. As sails caught the wind, thousands of warriors looked toward the distant city of Troy. None realized they were sailing toward a conflict that would last 10 long years. The walls of Troy was unlike any city in the ancient world. Its massive stone walls rose high above the surrounding plains, built, legend claimed, by the gods themselves. They had never been breached. King Priam ruled wisely. His eldest son Hector commanded Troy's armies. Unlike many heroes, Hector fought not for glory. He fought for his family, his wife, his son, his homeland. To the Trojans, he was hope itself. The war begins. The Greeks landed on Trojan shores. Spears glittered beneath the morning sun. Thousands of shields locked together. Trumpets echoed across the beaches. The first battle erupted almost immediately. For years, neither side gained victory. Greek heroes won countless duels. Trojan defenders refused to surrender. Every season brought new battles, new heroes, new tragedies. The plains before Troy became a graveyard. The rivers ran red. Entire generations grew up knowing nothing except war. The anger of Achilles. During the 10th year, disaster struck the Greek camp. Agamemnon insulted Achilles by taking Briseis, a woman awarded to him after battle. To many, it seemed a personal dispute. To Achilles, it was an attack on his honor. Enraged, he withdrew from the war. Without their greatest warrior, Greek morale collapsed. The Trojans advanced. Camp after camp fell. Ships burned. Defeat seemed certain. Hector led every assault with unmatched courage. The walls of Troy had become stronger than ever. The Greeks desperately needed Achilles, but Achilles refused. His pride had become more powerful than his sword. Yet fate was already preparing the event that would change everything, a death that would awaken the fury of the greatest warrior in Greek mythology, his closest companion, his dearest friend, Patroclus. The fall of Troy and the beginning of Odysseus's greatest journey for 9 long years. The walls of Troy had never fallen. Thousands of warriors had died beneath its towering gates. The greatest heroes of Greece had fought with unmatched courage, yet the city still stood. Its banners continued to fly above the massive stone walls. To many, the war seemed endless. But destiny had already chosen its final chapter, and it would begin with the death of one man, the death of Patroclus. Among all the warriors in the Greek camp, no one was closer to Achilles than Patroclus. Raised together since childhood, they trained side by side. They laughed together. They fought together. Some ancient writers described them as brothers in spirit. Others believed their bond ran even deeper. Whatever the truth, they trusted each other completely. As the Trojans pushed the Greeks back toward their ships, Patroclus could no longer watch his friends die. He entered Achilles' tent. "My friend," he pleaded, "if you will not fight, then let me wear your armor. The Trojans will believe Achilles has returned. Perhaps that alone will save our army." Achilles remained silent. His anger toward Agamemnon still burned fiercely. Finally, he nodded. "Wear my armor, but hear me carefully. Drive them away from our ships and return. Do not chase them to Troy." Patroclus agreed. But fate had other plans, the false return of Achilles. As Patroclus marched into battle wearing Achilles' legendary armor, panic spread among the Trojans. "It's Achilles!" The cry echoed across the battlefield. Greek soldiers, inspired by the sight, launched a fierce counterattack. The Trojans retreated, their lines broke. For the first time in months, hope returned to the Greek camp. Patroclus fought like a storm. He defeated countless warriors. He drove the Trojans all the way back to the gates of Troy. Then, he forgot Achilles' warning. Instead of turning back, he pursued the enemy toward the city. Waiting near the gates stood Hector, Prince of Troy, greatest defender of the city. The two champions met beneath the towering walls. Their duel shook the battlefield. Spears splintered, shields cracked. Finally, Hector's spear found its mark. Patroclus fell. As he lay dying, he looked into Hector's eyes. "You may defeat me today, but Achilles will come for you." Moments later, the greatest friend Achilles had ever known was gone. The wrath of Achilles' news reached the Greek camp before sunset. Achilles collapsed. His anger vanished. Only grief remained. He held Patroclus' body for hours, refusing food, refusing sleep. The strongest warrior in Greece wept openly before his army. Then, his sorrow transformed into fury. "I will return, and Hector will answer." The armor of the gods. Achilles' original armor had been taken by Hector after defeating Patroclus. Thetis, Achilles' mother, climbed to Olympus. She begged Hephaestus, the divine blacksmith, for help. The god returned to his forge. Bronze melted like water. Gold flowed into magnificent patterns. Silver reflected the stars themselves. At the center of the shield, he crafted an entire world. Cities, mountains, rivers, harvests, festivals, constellations. The shield became a masterpiece unlike anything ever forged. When Achilles put on the new armor, it shone brighter than the morning sun. The Greeks watched in silence. Even seasoned warriors stepped aside. It seemed less like a man preparing for battle and more like a god descending to earth. Achilles versus Hector the next morning. Achilles marched alone toward Troy. Every Trojan who saw him fled behind the city walls. Only Hector remained. King Priam called from the ramparts, "My son, come inside." But Hector shook his head. "If I hide today, I will never again face my people." He stepped forward. The two greatest warriors of the ancient world stood face to face. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Hector attacked. Their battle echoed across the plain. Spears flew, swords clashed, dust rose beneath their feet. 3 times they circled the walls of Troy. Finally, Athena, disguised as Hector's brother, deceived the Trojan prince into making one final stand. Hector hurled his spear. It missed. Achilles threw his own. It struck Hector in the only place left unprotected, his throat. The Prince of Troy collapsed. As life faded from him, he whispered, "I beg you, return my body to my father." Achilles, consumed by grief and rage, refused. The sorrow of King Priam. That night, something extraordinary happened. King Priam secretly entered the Greek camp alone. The elderly king knelt before Achilles. Then he kissed the hands that had killed his son. "Remember your own father," Priam whispered, "and pity mine." The words pierced Achilles' heart. For the first time since Patroclus' death, his anger softened. Silently, he returned Hector's body. The two enemies wept together, one for his son, the other for his friend. It became one of the most moving moments in all of Greek mythology. The wooden horse. Even after Hector's death, Troy still refused to fall. The walls remained unconquered. Years of fighting had accomplished nothing. Then Odysseus proposed an idea no warrior had imagined. If strength cannot defeat Troy, perhaps wisdom can. Greek craftsmen built an enormous wooden horse. Inside its hollow body hid the finest Greek warriors. The remaining army sailed away. Or so it appeared. The Trojans celebrated. They believed the war had finally ended. Ignoring repeated warnings from the priest Laocoon and the prophet Cassandra, they pulled the enormous horse inside the city as a victory trophy. That night, as Troy slept, the hidden warriors climbed out. They opened the city gates. The Greek fleet, which had secretly returned under cover of darkness, sailed back into the harbor. The city awoke to flames. The streets filled with battle. Palaces burned. Temples collapsed. After 10 years of resistance, Troy had fallen. A new hero emerges. The war was over. Achilles was dead. Hector was gone. Troy had become ashes. The greatest conflict of Greek mythology had ended. But for one man, the greatest adventure was only beginning. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, the brilliant strategist who conceived the Trojan horse. He longed to return home to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. He believed the voyage would take only a few weeks. Instead, the gods had prepared a journey unlike any hero had ever faced. A voyage across haunted seas, past monsters, sorceresses, cyclopes, sirens, and the kingdom of the dead itself. It would take him 10 years and become one of the greatest epics ever written, the story of the Odyssey.